Welcome to the Meta-Averse podcast, episode number 1, taping on Monday, March 7th, 2022. My name is Noah Kravitz. Coming up on the show, the Mindful Metaverse, a conversation with Nanea Reeves. Nanea is the CEO of a company called Tripp that has been making virtual reality experiences, VR, and working on AR and XR experiences for a few years now. And they are stepping into the metaverse, or more into the metaverse, I should say, with the acquisition of another company called Evolver. Nanea and I talk about what the Mindful Metaverse means, what it could be, how they're building it, what it means to build technology experiences designed to increase human well-being in a lot of different ways. Meditation is part of it, but there's more to it than that. We also get into Nanea's own background in the gaming industry. She's been doing this for a while. So it's a great conversation, a lot of insights. One of the things I appreciated the most was Nanea talking about the importance of building to suit your medium. In other words, if you're building for VR, if you're building for the metaverse, why just try to recreate what we already can do in the physical world? And why not leverage the medium? Why not build natively to the medium to do things in the digital space that aren't possible in the physical space? She's been doing that with Tripp. They're continuing to do it going forward. Very cool conversation. So stick around for that. Nanea Reeves on the Mindful Metaverse. But first, it's episode 1, so I got to say hi, lay a little groundwork, let you know what we're doing here. The podcast is called Meta-Averse. I guess housekeeping first. Shout out, thank you, a lot of love to my partners, my friends who got in the boat with me to make this happen. Thank you to Seven, to Melissa, to Doug, Mega Doug, some of you might know from the Phone Dog days way back, all in the boat with me. So thank you guys for making this possible. Now then, Meta-Averse, it's a podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all the usual places. We're also doing a video version on YouTube, so you can check that out. We've got Instagram, and Twitter right now, Meta-Averse Pod, all one word. So you can follow us there. You can say hi, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your colleagues, tell the avatar you met in Decentraland to check out the podcast. Not too long ago, all of a sudden the metaverse, everybody was talking about the metaverse in my professional life, in my message threads, everywhere. Everybody's been talking about Bitcoin, crypto for a while now. The Super Bowl ads, obviously, if you caught those or heard about them, it's kind of exploded into the mainstream consciousness, I would say, over the past 6 months or so. There are different reasons for that, which we'll get into in future episodes, but a ton of venture capital money being put into the space. It's been going on for years, but especially second half of 2021, beginning of 2022, just a lot of money being put into this whole thing we call the metaverse, Web3. So this we use this term to mean, not just what the company Meta is doing, that's part of it, the sort of ideal of the Ready Player One immersive VR, which we might be on the road to, we might not be. It might be a good thing, might not be. We'll talk about all that, but also Web3, so the blockchain and everything the blockchain enables, cryptocurrencies, tokens, NFTs, all kinds of things. So we take all of these things, we lump them together under this heading of the metaverse. And we're going to talk about what it is, what it's not, what it might be, what it can't be right now. There's a lot of headlines being made, unfortunately, because of scammy behavior, people making lots of money off of other people losing lots of money, particularly in the NFT space. But there's a lot else that's going on using these technologies that's not about that. That's about trying to build community. That's about trying to build decentralized versions of some of the things we use, social media and other platforms, to sort of shift the balance of power and sort of change who owns these technologies, who has a say in how the future of tech that we all use is built out. There's a lot more than that, and there are a lot of other people who can explain it better than I can, which is why I started the pod, which is why I'm doing interviews. It's going to be an interview-based show, at least for now. You'll hear from me at the beginnings, of course, but hopefully not too much. Hopefully this is one of the longer monologues to start a show. But we're booking guests from across the spectrum, people who are making all of this technology, people who are investing in it, people who are observing and reporting on it, people who are using it, people who are passionate, people who are true believers, people who are critics, everything in between. Now, the Mindful Metaverse with Nanea Reeves. It's a great conversation. Stick around. Thanks for listening. All right, here with us today is Nanea Reeves. Nanea is the CEO of Tripp, a digital wellness VR company. There's a better description than that. I will let you introduce the company. But Nanea, thanks so much for joining the Meta-Averse podcast. Glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, Noah. Thanks for asking. I thought the digital wellness platform, or whatever you called us, was good. We like to call ourselves the Mindful Metaverse, or building the Mindful Metaverse right now.
Yeah, so I'm eager to talk to you about that concept and the post you put up on Medium beginning of February announcing the acquisition of Evolve VR was under that banner, the Mindful Metaverse. But before we get to that, it'd probably be useful for the audience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Tripp, whatever you like about the company, your own background, et cetera, but about the work that you're doing in AR, VR, XR with wellness and what was the phrase that you used? Digital fitness?
Or fitness for your inner self.
Fitness for your inner self.
Yeah, which is, trying to explain what we do at Tripp. It's rather difficult. There aren't a lot of people approaching mindfulness and different states of being that we can all have as part of being humans. We're trying to use technology to, essentially make people feel better.
Right.
And what we found was in the early days of VR, at least this wave of virtual reality, where we're working with devices that are very consumer friendly, rather than the early pioneers who, it was impossible to even get research done in it, but they did. Right. They've been working on it a lot, and but we found that the immersion of virtual reality was a wonderful medium to look at how we could create containers that you can retreat to with a self-care kind of goal, drive a deeper connection. And, there's a lot of people, I think, in the early days of virtual reality content creation, were focusing on simulating this reality. And what we decided to do at Tripp was really to lean in what's native about virtual reality. What can we do to create experiences you can't feel or have in the physical world, and do that with the goal of architecting them in ways that make you feel supported. So using gameplay mechanics, sound frequencies, targeted visuals, playing with movement in a way that triggers states of, oh, wow, kind of feelings, which can have a huge benefit on your mental well-being if you're kind of stuck in a negative headspace. To get into that awe and wonder can be very helpful.
Right. It's, I suppose it makes sense, but it's interesting that the point you raised that when we have a new medium to explore, kind of the first thing that a lot of people do is try to recreate the old medium and the new medium, right? How can I build a digital storefront in virtual reality so that I can then recreate? There was a quote from one of your posts, recreate Gucci bags in digital that I can sell, right? No offense to anybody who likes Gucci bags.
No, and I actually have a lot of Gucci bags.
There you go.
But,
But one thing I found really interesting to what you were saying is that, and correct me if I've got this wrong, but the experience, the trips, if you will, the experiences inside of Tripp that people see are generative. They're not necessarily pre-made. I'm sure there are elements being used, not to get into how the sausage is made, but you're creating things that can be personalized, and also, as you said, are more about leveraging what's native to the medium than trying to recreate things. Can you maybe speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a few things to kind of unpack on what you just brought up. So we'll start with the latter first, which is, one of the good attributes of technology is that it can be adaptive, and you are learning as a user navigates through any application, whether it's on your mobile phone or a video game, there's a data stream that I've always looked at in my technology career as a conversation. You're telling me as you click on something or as you opt in to engage with something, this is what I need right now. And what you ignore is just as important as well. And in the past, we've seen people take that data stream and use it in ways that can, manipulate a purchase intent, right? Can even change the outcome of elections, as it gets more sophisticated.
I was thinking it, but you said it. So,
yeah. So, I looked at that and I thought, and I know a lot about those technologies. I've worked in the video game industry for a
Right.
long time. I've integrated e-commerce solutions and advertising and data collection. And, there was this, I tend to think of work-life balance. It's all the same. It's all life.
Right.
I'm breathing in the moment and I am living. I'm here now. And I don't separate out my work from other interactions. I've always tried to find meaning and a connection to what I'm doing. And, I love video games. When I was a young person, I found in a very chaotic environment, going into that mindset where I felt in control of the environment,
Right.
even like designing my loadout for, a first person shooter game, like, you're strategically thinking, but it was also getting my mind off of what was, and it gave me a sense of empowerment. And so I think that, there are a lot of benefits that don't get spoken about video game playing that I think are worth talking about and looking at, even from a scientific research standpoint, impact on spatial reasoning skills. But there's also, I believe, a whole wave of psychological benefits that can occur. And then, I also have been practicing meditation for a long time, way before the mindfulness apps on the mobile phone, or what I sometimes call
Right.
mindfulness, right? But I'm so grateful because they really they reduced the stigma. When I started meditating, I was a teenager in peril, and it was something I was embarrassed to tell other people that I did. But it really helped me, and I lost my husband very suddenly to cancer, and it was kind of in that life kind, just changing energy that, you get shoved down your throat when something like that happens.
Yeah.
It does force you to stop and think about your life differently. One, I had a deeper sense of understanding that none of us know how much time we have left. And I had achieved a certain amount of career traction where my ideas would be supported. And I had supported a lot of other people's ideas. And it was in that space of kind of grief and rebuilding and feeling, everything just burned to the ground. And I thought, what do I want to build and how do I want to rebuild this? And it made me think about, how do we use technology for good? How do we create tools that can help people get the kind of support that, my decades long meditation practice gave me, my escape into technology and video games experiences? There was something in there that the idea for Tripp emerged. And so when I look at the advent of the metaverse and how to use tech for good, if we can manipulate you to be focused on buying something you don't actually need, can we also use tech to help you drive behavioral changes that you want, that's fully transparent to you? You're not like, we're not trying to pull
Not being
something up.
tricked, right?
Yeah, we're not tricking you with it. And this is what excites me about decentralization, Web3 mechanics, because if we have those kind of principles as we approach the build out of these new technology interfaces, I think we can add something that can really enhance the human experience. And that's really the goal that we approach this with. So one of the things I wrote in that post that you read was, why are we so focused on recreating all the
Yeah.
crappy things we've built in the physical world in the digital world? I mean,
Right.
just the idea that land scarcity is a concept being applied to
Let's,
metaverse and decentralized, like it's an infinite world digitally. To me, it just seems like a rapacious kind of transaction being, crammed into something that could be so much more than that.
so I think there's a lot in there, and I'm happy to talk more about Tripp, but I'm curious about some of the science behind what you're doing. But
Mm.
we'll put a pin in that for now.
Yeah, sure.
We can always talk again in the future. But to get into the whole metaverse and Web3 and all of that, um, there's something you said about being at a point in your life, in your career in particular, your
Yeah.
professional life,
Hmm.
where you know, and without knowing you very well, we've known each other for 7 minutes now, 5 of which was spent stomping technical bugs, but we got there. Um, there is something I think about, when you go through your life and your professional work supporting people,
Hmm.
just, because it's what you do, whether you realize it or not, or perhaps intentional, that gets paid back to you at some point, I think, with people supporting your ideas. And when you're at that point and you feel that support, it kind of frees you up to look at things a different way, try things a different way. In your case, you spoke of your husband passing, and traumatic events can also, make you take stock of your life in a new way, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, but it sounds like you hit a point, and you can kind of fill in the timeline here, but that hit this point that eventually led you to start Tripp with exactly what you were saying, looking
Hmm.
at, we have these mechanics in place, and coming from the gaming industry yourself, or we were talking before we started recording, with my background, having worked in different parts of tech and, for companies who are focused on making money and earning a living's a reality. But you hit a point where you think, well, what else can we do?
Right.
And I think, as you were saying, if we're able, the greater we have figured out how to cajole people into making another in-app purchase, into coveting virtual goods, whatever it might be,
Hmm.
shouldn't it be at least as easy to nudge people towards doing something that they actually more intentionally think, I want to feel less stress. I want
Right.
to, I want my body to be more flexible. I'm drawing from my own, my
Yeah.
own
I,
current
I
wish
want
list.
that too. I
I
haven't
want,
built that app yet.
right, right. So, so thinking about a lot of what drew me to start this podcast, and the order of the first couple episodes, not sure if this will be episode 1 or 2 or whatever, but first batch of people I'm talking to. So thank you again for your willingness here.
You're
But in
welcome.
thinking about that, it was, for me, it was spurred by this feeling of, this tech all sounds really cool. The tech itself, this notion of, built in, the trust is built into the code, and descriptions I've read of the blockchain, and the immersive technologies like AR and VR and XR kind of taking us to the next step. There's screens, and the screens are mobile, and the screens are attached to cameras and sensors. And to your point, we can have that two-way conversation with the data being recorded, even from our own bodies.
Hmm.
How do we take that to the next step of experience, right? But a lot of the talk and the things in the press right now are scams and rug pulls and lawsuits and billions of dollars going missing, and what's an NFT, and the volatility of crypto and everything. So as you're kind of embarking on this next stage of your career, and where Tripp is going, and we can talk about the acquisition of Evolve VR, and the mindful metaverse, idea.
Hmm.
What is it that you, I don't know, to get away from the negative, what is it that you're seeing that you think can be done, or at least there's a path you want to go down, that
Yeah.
isn't about replicating all the crappy stuff we've built, and instead thinking, well, what can we do?
Well, first and foremost, I personally am committed to being that voice that says, let's build something better.
Yeah.
Right. And now's the time to really start planting that seed. And it doesn't mean that we need to thwart people's ideas, unless they conform to some kind of utopian condescending view, right? Like I think sometimes you can get in your own echo chambers in a way that's not healthy either. And in many ways, sort of the wild west of these toxic online communities, maybe there's a place for that. And you look at like Reddit is a wonderful example of how community moderators can curate the conversation and manage it. And I think that there's that kind of principle that is really exciting to me as we build out these worlds. And I've always had a vision that the future, even of video games, would be more like tools that get handed to the community, the players, and they build the experiences. They build the world that they want. Like, and so
level editors, but then some.
Totally.
I'm dating myself.
So I think that a lot of this dystopian narrative, and I think much of it comes from the incumbents who are afraid of the change. And in my experience, I think people are hardwired to resist change. I always say, let's take the no out of innovation, and rather than put the no in it.
Right.
And you think about it. I mean, just my personal experience when we started a company called Jammed Out Mobile, very early mobile gaming company, started in the year 2000, became one of the first breakout hit mobile game companies. And I ran tech and operations at that company.
Phone Dog fans, if there are any of you out there watching, you might remember Jammed Out. I remember Jammed Out.
Yeah, we had a really popular bowling game. We distributed Bejeweled and Tetris. We even worked with Activision and EA. Electronic Arts ended up buying our company.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So we... in the early days of Jammed Out, when we first started the company, people would say, no one wants to play a game on their cell phone. All people want to do is talk on their phone. They just need their cell phone for emergencies. And, why would I play a crappy mobile game, on my phone rather than on my PlayStation? And we heard the same thing in the early days of e-commerce, No one's ever going to buy something they can't actually hold in their hands. And books maybe, but real things, no one will ever buy shoes for sure. Right? You need to try it on. And the list goes on. When I was at a company called Machinima, which was one of the largest YouTube gaming networks, I would hear all the time, even though we had hundreds of millions of viewers on YouTube, why would anyone want to watch someone else play a video game? And I would go, why would anyone want to watch someone else play golf? Like,
No, exactly.
So, we have to also kind of be suspicious of a lot of these dystopian narratives too, because, when you can create automated royalty streams on the blockchain, it displaces a lot of people who've been making a lot of money by inserting themselves into the flow, whether it's the transaction flow, the royalty publishing flow that the music industry is committed to, the art dealer patron flow. And, now the artist can continue to participate in the transactions.
Not to put you on the spot to explain the blockchain to everybody.
Oh my God.
New podcast, one of the first episodes. I am going to ask you, when you talk about an automated royalty system, what is that for the uninitiated? What does that mean?
So one of the nice things about an NFT, rather than, a lot of people saying, oh, it's just an animated GIF for $80 million. Like, why would anybody, why would anybody want to buy that? Right. But when you look at how in the blockchain, you can embed a little contract, a smart contract. It can have a lot of functionality in it, or it can be simple and just say, when this sells, you paid this person that much and that person this much. And the platform might even get a little bit, and that can continue on for the life of all the transaction flow. So now,
so if you make an NFT of a GIF of a screenshot of this conversation, you can embed a smart contract that says,
pay
anytime,
Noah, pay me, and
anytime this changes hands, you get a cut, I get a cut, et cetera, right?
Right.
And that's just in the code, basically.
It's in the code. Yeah. No one has to. So the way that, let's just take the art world today. If you're lucky enough to be an artist, to have a gallery represent you, the gallery gets an art buyer to buy your piece, and you split the revenue. Right. The payment there, and then after that, owner of the new painting, they can choose to resell it. Sometimes through an auction house, sometimes through a gallery, but the artist never gets any participation in that, all those subsequent sales. And we know that is a big, revenue deal flow in the art world, right? Art is an asset, and especially with certain artists. So, that in and of itself is very, I think, innovative. And we've seen a lot of artists in the digital art space this past year, especially, be able to create a living for themselves. That I think is very exciting. And then when you think about like how the music publishing industry works, and we would, if I'm a musician and I'm fortunate enough to have a record deal, and, whoever produced it, the record company, anyone, all the musicians, they all get a little piece of the pie, and it's all percentage wise based on your contribution or what you did. But oftentimes there's so much front loading of costs and expenses that the music artist gets very little of that money, and maybe hardly makes any at all. And they have to do live shows and
touring forever.
Right. So, we haven't seen it happen yet, but I believe that's going to be the next wave of using the blockchain to revolutionize an industry. But it will displace a lot of people making a lot of money right now.
Right.
And I was on a panel recently with some of those guys, and they're really trying to figure out, how do we stay relevant in this transaction? I mean, look at the early days of advertising, even up until the 1980s and 90s, before the internet. You would have paste up artists, typesetters, stack camera operators, runners, running, mechanicals that were created by the paste up artists, down to the newspaper. And, now one person can do what 60, 80 people did.
Yeah.
Media buyers. And, so there's the potential for all of that with smart contracts to reduce a lot of the friction.
So bring it back to Tripp, and we can keep going on this thread, but kind of to bring it back, what tell us about the work you're doing with Evolve VR, I guess the acquisition of Evolve VR, and who they are, how you're working together, and how that relates to this idea of the mindful metaverse.
And again, I think a really cool posture as a business leader is just to be open-minded. And so our first goal when we started,
pretty good posture as a human, we're all trying to get there.
Well, also because, especially as a startup entrepreneur, you will sometimes get so attached to your one idea that you don't see the forest for the trees. And it's really important just to get something built and get it out there. And you may find that a completely different idea emerges based on how the feedback comes in to you on what people like, where they want to see it be more evolved. And so with Tripp, we first started working on really exploiting that really safe space that could be created in virtual reality, and thinking of it more like a respite. How do we create for lack of a better term, a cosmic flotation tank that could kind of make you feel cozy, and then float out into a bigger dimension and
Right.
give you that sense of feeling part of something bigger. And I feel like we've done that, at least for phase one, in a way that we're all very proud of. And it's unique. We take a slightly psychedelic approach to it, uh, because you can in VR, and it makes it fun.
I like, there was a pull quote on your website, I think, from a review that said it's meditation meets a video game meets a happy pill.
Yeah,
Which
right.
I like that.
It's unique,
Yeah.
and it has been a joy to work on, and it's attracted a lot of users as well as wonderful development talent that are excited about our mission to create these experiences that help change someone's state of being and mind. And what we found, though, was the Evolver community, or Evolve VR.
Evolver. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Great.
you can say it both ways, I think.
Yeah, I always miss the obvious. So I'm
well, it's missing an E, so no one's. But they have been up and running for 5 years in alt space, and it was started by a Unitarian minister named Jeremy Nickel.
Okay.
And he is a wonderful person, really heart-centered. And he just really had this vision of creating a virtual environment that people could come together and have these shared experiences with meditation and open conversation. They had a weekly death Q&A because, a lot of the anxiety,
literature, yeah.
It's one of the most popular experiences that, events that they have. And what we saw, I stumbled upon Evolver during their Burning Man. When Burning Man first went on to VR and in alt space, I thought, well, I'll go check it out.
Yeah.
And Evolver had created a temple in the Burning Man virtual space. And when I showed up there, I was surrounded by a bunch of friendly little avatars welcoming me to the space. And then one of them recognized my voice from the Tripp app.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, because I do.
Do you do the voiceovers?
Well,
or not voiceover, but the.
Yeah, I do the guided meditation only because I was cheap and I could do it regularly.
Yep, I understand.
You do.
Well, what you're saying about before, all the folks who you needed to do ads back in the day, the other side of displacement is that an individual can create so much. So yeah.
That's right. And we were a small team at the time, but when I met the Evolver community that day, they all said, "Oh, we love Tripp so much, and you have to meet Jeremy." And, I had checked out a few of their events after that, and I really loved what they were doing. And Jeremy reached out to me and he said, "Look, I can only get so far on my own with what I've built, and I've built something pretty awesome. And is there a conversation where we should think about joining forces?" And so it's a natural and organic expansion to want to take care of yourself first. And then, what Evolver has created is the opportunity to create live support in real time, but also to give support. So often at times the session leaders actually emerge from their community as well. And so I'm really excited about, one, putting the Evolver presence in more worlds, whether they're in the walled garden worlds, like right now they're in Altspace and on the Engage platform. We're looking at how do we create a world and a space in Horizons.
Not to interrupt you, Engage or the AR glasses?
No, that's the Nreal.
Oh, Nreal, right. Okay.
Engage is another platform that is available on the Quest and other VR devices. So it's like Altspace.
Right.
And so the goal being, we're going to put them in all the different worlds and also the decentralized worlds once they become more accessible, and really create mindful spaces that people can come and chill and connect to others in a way that is well supported, the alt space community leaders and moderators. They have really learned how to control, the trolls
Yeah,
and
which
the
is huge. There are early reports. I'm sure you're more aware than I am, but with Meta Horizons of people being, sexually assaulted in VR, and
yeah.
I'll leave it to listeners to make meaning of those words, but essentially being harassed and
Well, as a
you know,
girl gamer,
yeah, right? Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely an issue.
yeah,
And so that was the other thing that I realized, why not join forces with Evolver? They've figured it out,
right, right,
and it takes a long time to harden that. And then we can also use our relationships in the industry with the platforms to help them make sure they have the right tools that they're putting in place,
right.
whether they're the decentralized worlds or the, like Horizons, et cetera, that we can work with you and say, look, this is what we need to create, really good environments for people to come in and get the support that they need. So that's the goal initially. That's what we're focusing on right now. And then you will see Tripp bring more social and community into its experiences. And one of
Cool.
the things we're doing that's super cool, which we announced at AWE last year, was we are working with Niantic on their Lightship platform
Hmm.
as a partner to bring the Tripp experiences through augmented reality over the real world and get people into physical locations connecting to the world around them, but also with each other.
So as I've been listening, I've had in the back of my head what you said about the death Q&A sessions being so popular, and about the notion it's almost the and I know I'm preaching to the choir. You've lived this more than I have, I'm sure, but the notion of, for all of the troll behavior that, the anonymous keyboard warrior hides behind the screen and a fake, handle and everything. Was thinking about the flip side and how something like death that in, Western and American culture certainly isn't talked about all that much.
Right.
Um, that I was imagining, and I've had this myself, going online and finding myself sharing freely with people
Yeah.
who I wouldn't do that necessarily with people I know in what are we calling IRL, meet space? I don't know, whatever the kids call it these
I
days,
think
right?
all of that is good. I call it the physical
The
world
physical world, yeah.
because I remember speaking. Do you know Kent Bai, who runs the Voices of VR podcast?
No, I don't think I do.
He's an amazing person and really knows a lot about
Right.
the space.
Putting him on my list of names of
Yeah,
people that,
you
yeah.
should. He needs to be interviewed, right?
Cool.
He's awesome. But
Great.
when I shared a very early build of Tripp with him, we had in there a line that said, "You may return to reality when you are ready," at the end of it. And he said, you had me so deep in the experience, and why do you
Right.
suddenly like make me feel like it's fake by saying
Right.
this isn't real, what
Right.
I just experienced? And so, it really, it hit me very deeply when he said that these are experiences that are meaningful and connected. And that's really that principle of how do we build something better to enhance our experience. So there's some really cool research that Skip Rizzo, who's a neuroscientist
Mhm.
and psychiatrist out of USC, and he's done some work with trauma specific to combat and
Right.
veterans.
Right.
And
Right.
what he found when he created a digital agent, like an avatar that the uh, patient can talk to in a virtual environment, that they were actually able to open up about some of the things that they were holding on to in ways that they couldn't with a human because they weren't feeling the judgment of a human or
Right.
afraid of the judgment. And so it doesn't replace the therapist, but it can augment the treatment by using these digital agents in ways that can allow you to, just express something that you haven't been able to, which can also be part of a path that's therapeutic.
Yeah.
And like you said, especially with men, having a stigma around expressing anything that might be emotional, et cetera, there is, and there's research around that, right?
Mhm.
And
Oh no, I'm laughing because it's true.
well, and also, I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to make it kind of a cultural thing, but I'm part Chinese and was raised by a Chinese grandmother, and I was taught to not
Right.
show anything, and to just suffer in
Right. Right.
silence,
Right. Yeah.
and so it's definitely, I think, a really interesting use of these online communities where that layer of abstraction can allow you to get something out. And I saw a little window of this. Do you know this app Whisper that
Sounds familiar.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
mobile app and it's very popular with the LGBTQ teen
Okay.
community, and you do anonymous posting. And
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I went on Whisper when my husband got diagnosed with cancer because he didn't want me to tell anyone. And I mean, it was
Oh,
like,
right.
it was like this tea kettle on under
Yeah.
a high heat, right? Filled with water. And I went on Whisper and I just said, look, my husband has cancer and I have not told anyone, and I'm dying inside, right?
Yeah.
And the support that I got back from just anonymous voices, and really, and it went on for days in a way that just allowed me to kind of feel like it was very unusual experience. And
Well,
I think it was like the best of what the internet has to offer,
I mean,
right?
to use your words from before, it makes me think of that finding the container
Hmm.
where you can be, let's
Hmm.
say yourself, but another version of yourself that's freer in certain ways. And then, as you said, over time, that container then expands to be able to interact with others in that space.
Well, and who knows? Like, I would love to see some research done on. You had mentioned the anonymous,
Right. Right.
programmer at the keyboard, but maybe that venting of all that toxicity and the trolling has some psychological benefit to that
Mm.
person as an outlet, so that they're better in the physical world.
But
Like
I'm just laughing,
I'm very
and
optimistic.
yeah, yeah, no,
Obviously.
it's I'm laughing because I immediately thought of Twitter because I Twitter was the social platform that I jumped on and have stayed with for a variety of
I
reasons.
like Twitter,
I
actually. Yeah.
I liked. I mean, when I was working as a reporter, reviewer, whatever the right word is, it was my water cooler to talk shop with people in that little
Yeah,
professional
that's what
niche,
I
right?
like about
People
it.
use it,
Yep.
yeah. As time has gone on, I have the more I use Twitter read only, the better off I am because
Mhm.
once that switch flips for me, I just rant and rave, and it's there's there's a venting that's good, but then it can tip into
Well, especially
oh,
when your identity is associated with it, right?
right,
So
yeah,
the decoupling of that identity, I think we can look at in very innovative ways as we look at avatars and how we approach metaverse. So why does it have to be a one-to-one mapping to who I am in the real world?
yep,
Maybe there are different identities I want to express in ways creatively in a virtual space. One, even just psychologically, being more open emotionally in ways that I'm just not comfortable with in real life. And one thing that was really interesting when Philip Rosedale was at Second Life and I met with him, he told me there was this large community of autistic people in Second Life
yeah,
that were having social interactions that they just were not capable of experiencing in the physical world with other people. And, those kind of things I really grab onto
Yeah.
when I hear them, because it lets me know that there are other use cases for tech besides just e-commerce and advertising algorithms and even video games in ways that are just about getting you to stay in them forever. And
Right.
so that those are the things I get excited about when we think about what the metaverse can be.
And so, are there plans that you can share for what Tripp and Tripp with Evolver now is looking to do in the metaverse? And, I'm using that term. I mean, I've seen it defined this way, and I just kind of latched on to a big umbrella term that encompasses VR, AR, XR, and then also, blockchain and all of those technologies.
Mhm.
So take this where it makes most sense for you. But are there things that you're looking forward to trying to do or to do that you can't do with current technology? Are there I don't want to say are there NFT plans, but you know what I mean? Are there things that you can do in that space, decentralization and so on,
Yeah.
that you're not able to do right now?
Well, uh, whatever your definition is of the metaverse, I believe it will be distributed, and you will you will enter it through many different paths. And so there is, there is a technology evolution underway that
Hmm.
computing is moving from the hand to the head. And there's a lot of companies battling for ownership as
Of,
the
of
standard
of our heads.
of the head.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you and I worked in this industry during a time where computing moved from the keyboard and the desk to the hand.
Right.
And now we are well into a new evolution of computing. And I think it's very exciting when you look at it from that standpoint, because it can be spatial, it can be accessible in overlays, different layers of reality, augmentation, all the way to full immersion. So that's one aspect. Then you have another component to that technology evolution, which is the rollout of 5G edge computing.
Hmm.
And we have been building apps for decades now that are, you download them to a device, and based on the device's capability, as far as processing and memory and space, that really limits or restricts how rich the app experience can be.
Right.
And you can see the difference from a mobile game to a PC game
Right.
or a PlayStation game. That's based on what the hardware requirements are. Edge computing allows us to put the hardware requirements up into the cloud. And essentially, what's coming down to the device will be a two-way video stream. Your button press will be a video stream up to the cloud, and this will allow us to have very lightweight devices. Right now, I feel like I'm putting a microwave oven on my head when I, when I,
Yep.
and
Yep.
even the lightweight ones, they get
No,
hot,
you, yeah,
and
you feel it in your neck.
you
It's, yeah.
do,
Yep.
and you feel the weight forward. And
Yep.
they weren't ever tested on women with smaller heads and not defined nose bridges, and
Right.
different cultures. And so being able to get a lightweight device that you can stream really rich experiences, that is right around the corner. And that's going to be a game changer. And then there's some interesting things percolating around. 70% of the world's population needs some kind of vision correction. And when you create eyeglasses that are lightweight, that can adjust your vision in real time, and they're data enabled and AI driven because they're connected to the internet, we're going to have an explosion of everyone having their own personal device. So right
Right.
now,
Right.
VR is very much like early days of mobile. Mom had that mobile in the car for emergencies.
Right.
Now it's in the home. It's a shared device among the family. They're all using it.
Hmm.
The features that will have a benefit to you as a human, like vision correction. It's not going to be, can I play Madden football on my eyeglasses all day long, right?
Right.
It's going to be, it auto focuses my, near and far sight
Yeah.
in real time. That's what's going to get this on everyone's head. And
Right.
it's not going to happen right away, but it's going to happen sooner than we think. So that's a really key facilitator of access to what we call the metaverse, because it will allow us to walk around with transformed views. And, and obviously people can exploit that and use it to collect data in a way that, can change it. The worst nightmare is just seeing all the advertising, right? That could come
Right.
at you. But I've seen some interesting innovation. There's this guy, Lucas Risotto, who I love. He's a creator and he's always experimenting and putting his stuff out there on YouTube. And he created an AR ad blocker that turns billboards that you see in the real world into artwork. And,
Nice.
So think about the use of NFTs in that scenario, right? And so I think there's going to be a lot of creative energy around how to do things differently with this. For Tripp, we're just going to stay in the lane of creating supportive interfaces. As the technology evolves, we'll be there front and center, just like early in my career, I was there with gaming. The first mobile game we built, it's hilarious to look at it side by side with the way they look now. I mean, you just get better and better. And things get less expensive as well.
Right.
And we've already seen that happen in the last couple of years with VR. So our goal is really, can we create these layers of reality augmentation that are all architected to help you connect to self in a way that and it can facilitate connecting to others. And I don't know if you meditate, Noah, but I know when I first
I've tried.
You've tried. Okay. Well, we can help you. We have an app.
Perfect.
But one of the things that happens is people approach mindfulness practices in the beginning stages with the goal of, I want to be calmer. I want to be less stressed out.
Right.
But what happens is this internal revolution where by being present, your awareness becomes present. And with awareness becomes self-awareness. And in that space of self-awareness, it can actually be very painful because you start to realize, wow, I'm not that great of a person, right? And I just said something harmful to someone I really care about. Right. And why did I do that? And we're so hardwired to see how the world's impacting us all the time, and we seek tools from that place. But what that shift that can happen where you start to see how you're impacting the world around you is a really important sea change for all of us. And so the more people we can get into that contribution and impact mindset where they start to think, how can I be better? How can I be a better boss, a better partner, a better parent, better citizen? And, it's those kind of changes that are where the revolution starts,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
And how we become better. And I see meditation and a regular mindfulness practice as a gateway to that. And so when you look at Web3 and decentralization, there's also opportunities for creating new earning economies. Like, could an earning economy be created around you taking care of yourself?
How would that work?
Well, I've got some ideas for it. I'm not really
not ready to share.
I'm not ready to share, but that can definitely be or let's just look at, this is not something maybe we do, but right now, when you go to the grocery store, and you swipe your rewards card, they're collecting data on you. Right. When you even signed up for Verify, with the COVID passport, they are brokering your data behind the scenes. Always, right? Yeah. Everyone is collecting data on you and they are reselling it. You are the product and you are not earning on any of that.
Right.
Decentralized interfaces could allow you to participate in the monetization of your own data in a way that can even be de-identified, because anonymized data has huge value to healthcare,
Sure.
insurance, understanding trends. If I can slice it by gender, age, location, it's actually important data for businesses for how they market,
Right.
especially pharma, et cetera. And
Right.
so why shouldn't you participate in that? You're generating that data.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so blockchain could actually facilitate that, where you can opt in to some kind of centralized data store and say, okay, I'm willing to feed my data from these apps to you. And when you sell it, the smart contract
Smart.
pays
There.
me
Right.
some
Okay.
money
It's like a royalty. Right. Right. Yep.
on your own data. Why
Yeah.
shouldn't you?
Yeah.
Everyone else is making money off it.
If I can get a little cut of the fact that the grocery stores know all I ever buy is ice cream and sparkling water, I'm all in. I'll do it.
But do you know how they sell that data? I actually know how they sell
How?
that data. So that data based on, because geographies tend to eat similar foods,
Mhm.
they can predict in neighborhoods which diseases you're going to get by what
Right.
you eat.
Right.
And then pharmaceutical will target certain
Right.
ads,
Right.
like
Right.
in some neighborhoods where there's not a lot of organic food eating, they will put type 2 diabetes ads, right? And
Right.
so, there is a lot
Yeah.
going on behind the scenes.
We grab that wheel and turn it the other way. So instead of selling diabetes meds, we're, I don't know, bringing better food into these food deserts.
Well, yeah, and maybe if healthcare could also take that data and reward you for taking care of yourself with lower premiums.
Right. Yep.
So those are kind of things we can do where the incumbents can actually, if they can flip their models, but we know that people aren't open to change.
Like
right?
you said, that people who, well, it's a whole separate conversation, but yes, they're resistant to change.
Yeah.
Nanea, this has been wonderful. For folks who want to find out more about Tripp, I mentioned your Medium blog. Maybe let's throw out some URLs. We'll put them in the show notes.
Tripp.com, Tripp with 2 P's, Tripp. I am at Nanea, Nanea on Twitter, and my DMs are open. We are hiring, and super excited to meet creators who have content that they might want to distribute through us. So we're launching a major update to our mobile app. So audio content.
Oh, excellent. Great.
We have some NFT artists who have created beautiful animations for our new mobile app, which should launch very soon. And so there's lots to our ecosystem and more growth that we're looking to roll out. So
and just to be clear, we've been talking a lot about VR experiences, but Tripp is also accessible in some ways if you don't have a VR headset?
Yeah, well, one, you can access AltSpace through the web browser, and you can join any of the Evolver meditations through that without a headset. And then shortly, the Tripp mobile app on iOS first. We're rolling out the beta on iOS, and then we'll update Android. We'll have a full catalog of meditation, music, and guided voice meditation. We have these really cool accompanying visuals to support you through that. And it's the beginning of us adding more and more content. And then toward the end of the year, we will be adding an AR upgrade to our mobile experience that has some Pokemon Go type of dynamic. Yeah, which I think will be really fun.
That's
the goal will be to get you out into like parks and other spaces to connect to yourself and connect to the physical world in a really cool way.
Yeah, AR kind of under the radar, although it's flying a little higher above the radar, wherever that metaphor goes. But
wherever that radar is,
wherever the radar is, right? But that idea of I don't know, AR and connecting the tech to the physical world and everything is something I'm very excited about.
I'm really excited about it. I'm not going to talk about some of the features yet, but the team has come up with a really cool design. And because of the way we've architected our platform, we can, it's very interoperable from one platform to the other. You can
Oh,
log
great.
in.
Cool.
So that some of the data the experiences that you have in VR will influence how the AR experience is,
Right.
but you can do each one on your own
Yep.
without having both. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Well, we'll have you back on the show when
Thank you so
we're ready
much.
for that.
This was a
Thank
lot
you.
of
This has been a
fun.
blast.
You too. Bye. Thank you.